Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson, Larry Cole and Dee Dee Lewis, Cliff Harris and Charlie Waters, and of course Tom Landry. These were the faces of the Dallas Cowboys. And if you were a Washington Redskins fan, these were faces you hated. In 1978, you hated them more than ever. You hated them for beating your Skins twice the season before and knocking you out of the playoffs. You hated them for having won the NFC title 2 years in a row. And you hated them for being Super Bowl champions. And there it was, Monday night, October 2nd, 1978, the night you'd waited for all year. The crisp autumn air reminded you that Washington had never lost at home on a Monday night. Tonight would come your revenge. Joe Theismann's revenge. John Riggins' revenge. Dave Butts and Ken Houston's revenge. Redskin revenge.
When the Redskins meet the Cowboys, it's the football equivalent of the United States versus the Soviet Union. But on such a night, the president was far less important than the offensive coordinator, who had to decipher Dallas's legendary doomsday defense, or than the quarterback, who had to dismantle it. These Redskins, to be sure, were ready for the Cowboys. At 4-0, they were the hottest team in football and featured a punishing defense of their own. On either side, it did not promise to be a fun night if you had to play on offense. Bruises were doled out early and often, and a foreboding sense of doom settled like fog over the gridiron. All the pregame hype dissipated as two larger-than-life defenses were reducing two respected offensive powers to helplessness. The largest crowd ever to watch a Redskin home game, there wasn't a single no-show, waited for someone to rise above. Redskin quarterback Joe Theismann, who had been struggling despite his team's success, was the first to step forward. In the face of the Cowboys' record-setting pass rush, Theismann reached back and led Washington downfield, until he reached back a little too far. In case anyone wasn't aware, Doomsday served final notice that it was not to be a night for gadgets or trickery. So Washington summoned the last of the great traditionalists, Mark Mosley. The old-style kicker's 52-yarder was the longest ever at RFK and drew first blood. In their hope to melt the defensive ice, Dallas looked to second-year speed burner Tony Dorsett, number 33. But the Redskins quickly doused the youngster's flames. Ten-year veteran Harold McClinton, number 53, became Dorsett's shadow, holding the Pro Bowler to 61 yards while getting in on an amazing 15 tackles. But the Cowboys had another runner, and this one was nearly impossible to bring down. The introduction of number 44, Robert Newhouse, meant that Dallas's offense could finally spread it out. Roger Staubach began to let loose, and number 88, Drew Pearson, got the better of the Skins secondary in the open field. But what quickly opens can close just as suddenly. With one arm, 285-pound tackle Dave Butts, number 65, solved the Newhouse problem. And after McClinton recovered a Dorsett fumble, the Redskins regained control of the ballgame. Number 83, Ricky Thompson, began to find the seams in Dallas's fabled flex defense, while John Riggins, number 44, made small gaps look like gaping holes. Mike Thomas, number 22, wasn't nearly as successful, and Theismann set back to the air. Aaron Kyle, number 25, kept the Skins out of the end zone with his first big play in what became a big night for him. But there was no keeping Washington out of the scoring column, and Mosley's second three-pointer of the night gave the Redskins a 6-0 advantage that no fan believed the home team could relinquish. Weapon number 2 was second-year wideout Tony Hill, number 80. Despite his rough initiation, Hill enjoyed his first taste of the Redskin-Cowboy rivalry. Constantly threatening to break the game open, he flourished in the single coverage he received in deference to Dallas's weapon number 1, Drew Pearson. Pearson's sideline catch gave Dallas first and goal at the 1, and suddenly thoughts of a Redskins shutout turned to fears of a Cowboy victory. On first down, McClinton came up big for the Skins, receiving some potentially game-saving help from number 27, Ken Houston. Out of nowhere, the future Hall of Fame safety swooped in to save a touchdown, but it was only second down. Again, it was Harold McClinton who rose up like a roving brick wall to deny Dorsett and the Cowboys a score, but Dallas had one more chance. McClinton and number 59, Brad Dusick, dealt Dallas strike 3. And in the face of the most memorable goal line stand in Monday night history, Rafael Septien's 19-yard field goal provided little consolation. It had, however, cut the Redskin lead in half, and the pressure built on Theismann to bolster the slim cushion. Ed Too Tall Jones, number 72, applied some pressure of his own as Doomsday took away the passing game. But in Washington, there was always Riggins, and the Redskin workhorse set up Old Reliable from 27 yards out. Mosley made it a perfect 3-for-3 on the night, and Washington's 9-3 lead forced Staubach and the Cowboys to put up now or get out of town. So Rodgers simply moved his team 61 yards downfield with some spectacular help from perhaps the greatest pressure receiver of them all, Drew Pearson. Suddenly, the Redskin defense was bending, and Staubach pushed it all the way to the breaking point. Ken Houston took it upon himself to set that limit. In his 12th year and on his way to his 11th consecutive Pro Bowl, Houston was still coming up with a kind of clutch plays that had earned him the unrivaled respect of his peers. And for a native of Texas, he was making a lot of Washingtonians very happy. Now with a chance to put the game out of reach, the Redskins turned again to Riggins. On his way to a game-high 96 yards, the big fullback did not disappoint. But again, a lack of patience did the Redskins in. Aaron Kyle's picture book coverage and phenomenal interception may have been the most photogenic defensive play on a night when two teams joined to put on a defensive display rarely equaled in pro football history. The intensity of the struggle had worn down even the strongest of men. The tenacity of the Super Bowl champions finally appeared to be eroding the Redskins' ability to withstand another charge. And so a weary Washington team braced for one last stand. Dallas seemed ready for their long overdue big play. And on fourth down, the Cowboys looked for the game winner. Dalbach and Hill had the Redskins beaten, but for one excruciating length of a football that glanced oh so painfully off Hill's fingertips. On 3 downs, however, Washington couldn't run out the final minute and 36 seconds of the ballgame and conducted an emergency fourth down strategy session to map out the 3 remaining ticks on the clock. Time expired as Theismann danced in his own end zone, giving the safety to preserve a thrilling 9-5 victory. It was the Redskins' biggest win since they knocked off Dallas in the 1972 NFC Championship game. And in this rivalry, whose last laugh always seemed to go to the Cowboys, Washington finally had its turn to roar.